Shanti Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat. So we are sort of concluding the verse number 3, which is very powerful and it's loaded with different interpretations and meanings. So we would have the concluding remarks and discussions, and then we'll graduate to the next verse, the sutra number 5. So before that, a few concluding remarks, sort of a summing up of what all we have discussed so far. So as we discussed yesterday, that there are two aspects to this whole universe when it manifests. So the sutra is that jnana dhisthana matrika. And by matrika, we are referring to the varnas, which are having ashtavargas, and starting with the O varga, and each of them. Ka, then you have cha, then you have ta, then you have ta, and then you have pa, and then you have ya, and then you have sa. So all these ashtavargas. One of them is Maheshwara and Paralakshmi. We had a discussion about it yesterday. But how does it start? From where it starts? The first movement. Whenever I talk about movement, it will talk about, you will have imagination about time and space coming in, because to move, it moves from here to there. But the first moment in this whole process of creation, when Lord Shiva, through his game of disguising himself, and externalizes this consciousness to start the process of creation, that is what is mentioned here. The first instance, the moment, is what is called a kind of a disturbance. What is that disturbance? In Sankhya, you also have that absolute balance between sattva, tamas, and rajas. And there is a break in that balance. And that is how Srishti starts. Similarly, here, the word they're using is that this is some kind of it's not like a physical murmur or anything. It's a mysterious vibration, which is not physical, it's not measurable, but it's a mysterious movement which is referred to as Kyobha. Kyobha is a kind of a disturbance, some kind of a movement. Remember one thing, that unlike Advaita Vedanta and the interpretation of the Upanishads, in the light of the arguments of Adi Shankara and his followers, the absolute Brahman is not only Nirguna and Nirakara, that means without any attributes, without any shape, name, and form. It's also Niskriya, or absolutely free from any activity. It's absolute pure consciousness. But in Kashmiri Saivism, that pure active consciousness, the supreme consciousness, is Vishwatirna and Vishwamaya. It's immanent and transcendent at the same time, and this is active. The supreme is active energy. It's not passive as if there's nothing. No, there is. And therefore, you have to somewhere see that field of energy. Just imagine it like it's a throbbing field of energy. And it's not a physical field of energy, but it's living. It's living not in the sense that a human being is living, or a plant is living, but that very consciousness is absolutely conscious. And there is that vibration, the first moment. This cannot be, it's not physical, it can be measured. You cannot know about it, you cannot perceive it, but it happens. And then slowly, what is called the Mula Dhvani, or the fundamental sound, it sort of graduates. So you have Kshobha, you have that foundational sound, it radiates waves. And these radiation of waves are not yet evident physically. Then they assume the form of sound. And finally, we differentiate them, classify them into ashtavargas. So this is vowels, these are consonants, this is avarga, that is kavarga. You see how they are thinking about it? To start with, it's a very mysterious presence making itself evident. And then that unfolds into the physical plane. Then this whole sansara, can you imagine how beautiful this whole imagination is? So, a few interesting things to meditate on. Remember this, that by manifesting himself, Lord Shiva, the perfect Parama Shiva, that absolute consciousness, is not losing any of its swatantriya, its autonomy, its independence, but it behaves as if it's trapped, because we are also not outside of his absolute consciousness. So that Shiva Tattva, through us, through this whole material diverse reality in which we are finding ourselves, this has become possible because of this process of descent, this process of differentiation, this process of what initially was unified, non contradictory, now appears through differentiation, through contradiction, through conflict, through names, through forms. And there are so many things that we see in this universe. So, there is that key thing is the loss of this balance through that disturbance called Shobha, what initially was avyakta or non-manifest becomes manifest, and through this manifest, first of all, what happens there is a contraction or delimitation of that absolute, autonomous, supreme, spiritual energy of the supreme consciousness, if I can put it in these abstract words. Lord Shiva Sakti suddenly appears to behave as if it is separate from Lord Shiva. It's all the time within him. It's not independent. The Shiva and Shakti is not like Sankhya. It's only one pure consciousness, and there are two aspects all the time united in Samarasya. The moment the creation process starts, this Prakriti behaves as if it's playing some kind of a game, and his own Shaktis become Kanchukas, veils. We are blinded by that, the Pancha Kanchukas. Now, the samsara in that sense is a modified manifestation of that first sound. That is one part of the story. But if you know, whenever anything you want to do, whether it is a project or a painting or anything you want to do, is that consciousness that we have, it connects with the external reality, wants to make sense of it, and then there is some dhwani, the sound, and then that sound becomes alphabets, and they are words with which we construct a story or narrative about what we are seeing or what we want to do or what we feel or how we would like to be. So there are two fundamental realities. One is the reality of this whole sound business and how it modifies itself and becomes the material world. If you look at the physics Big Bang theory, first was some kind of a bang, some kind of a sound, and how sort of everything happens after that. And the second one is that there is subjectivity. Remember this, the Shiva consciousness is beyond our mental consciousness. That is beyond all that we associate with the mind. That's kind of, as we call, Sri Aurobindo would use the word called supermind. But that is absolute consciousness, which is beyond what is called mental consciousness. Consciousness, generally, the scientists and those who favor that sort of a perception of it believe that it's essentially to do with the functioning of the brain. No brain, no consciousness. But here, that pure supreme consciousness, that Parama Shiva Tattva, observes all these, and it's much beyond what we describe as functioning of the mind. Therefore, all consciousness that we understand as human beings, that supreme consciousness is all beyond this. This consciousness deals with language, reference, subject matters. Then there are processes in which it sort of makes sense of it. That supreme consciousness doesn't engage with these sort of dualities and relations. It's just supremely aware of itself, and there is nothing outside of itself. Okay, so this matrika word, Jnanadhisthana matrika, where in a very layman's language, you can say that end of the day, it's talking about alphabets with which all knowledge is possible. We are discussing this sutra because we want to make sense of Sutra number 2 and 3, which is first one is Jnanam Bandhaha, Yoni Vargaha, Kala Sariraha. So these two, Yoni Vargaha, Kala Sariram, these two, that the Karma Mala, Maya Mala, and what is the first one is Anava Mala. So first you have Swarupa Jnana Hani, Swarupa Vismriti, Swatantriya Hani. Then Bheda, then you have this duality, the awareness of dualities. Bheda, Bhinna Vedya Prathatmaka Jnana. Everything is different and dualized, separated, differentiated. That is the kind of alteration of the Jnana Sakti. First one is loss of self-awareness, and then you have Subha Subha Karma Vasana, or desires and affinities and relations. And we are getting trapped at the first moment, and that sort of becomes bigger and more intense with our engagement with the samsara. We want to regain our autonomy, our freedom, and the purity of our consciousness. That is a reverse journey we want to engineer in our consciousness through our sadhana. And therefore, we are studying this fourth sutra, where he's trying to tell us, to explain to us where to start. Mark my words, it's a beautiful, very secretive, very mysterious sutra, because he's talking about what is the foundation from where you can get rid of the jnana, which is bandhatmaka. The jnana, which is liberating. If we want to go on that path, we have to understand what is the first step that we need to take. And that is why this whole mystery, and what kind of sadhana we have to do. Okay, so that particular Dibya Sakti of Paramashiva, with these vibrations, it takes all these different forms. Like the vibration associated with O is different from that with A, and then Ka, and all these varnas. And then you have words, then you have sentences, then you have concepts and theories, all sorts of things. Okay, so that is number one to understand. The second thing that you have to understand is that, what is the sequence of the creation now? So you have this Divya Sakti, which is non-independent of Lord Shiva. It was just an aspect of it. The power aspect appears to get dissociated, becomes separated from Chaitanya Mahatma, the Supreme Consciousness. Then there is desire for Avivyakti, starts manifesting, and this manifestation starts with what is called contraction or condensation, limitation. The Panchakanchukas come into picture. So you have this condensation or reduction of their powers, delimitation, kind of a condensation. Because as I was telling you, that you have a lot of emotions. End of the day, what do you tell that little baby? Your daughter, it's her birthday, you want to wish her. You cannot express your love for her by giving her a kiss or a gift, or by telling her that, my dear daughter, I love you most. Just a few words, isn't it? So by doing that, you are expressing yourself, but the very nature of manifestation demands that you actually, in a way, you are putting your infinite love for your daughter into a small cage made of a few words. Similarly, this whole samsara, this whole creation, always involves limitation and contraction and condensation. Why condensation? That is the thing, that unified, uninterrupted, undivided, pure consciousness, in order to manifest itself, it has to get differentiated, and then take millions and millions and millions of vibrations, and then these vibrations find physical shape, qualities, attributes, names, and forms. And we have this beautiful or ugly or diverse or confusing samsara. Now, this Matrika thing is essentially that, to start with, we have to understand these Varna Matrikas. That is that unified Ja Devi Sarvabhuteshu Sakti Rupena Sankhritaha. That one unified energy or the power aspect of Supreme Shiva. These Matrikas are differentiated mini micro forms or manifestations of that supreme power aspect of Divya Sakti, the divine energy of Parama Shiva. All of them are like little energies of the Supreme Mother, micro energies, very powerful. Each of them is like a tiny mother. Then, the world of ultimate reality, or the supreme spiritual world, is one in which there is no division, what we call the substratum in Vedanta. The Paramarthika Satya is that is only Brahman. There is no details over there. Similarly, here, that is that fundamental, foundational, supreme truth, which is energy and which is consciousness. When it wants to manifest, it has to travel through two layers, sound, and the sound represent, then it also get differentiated, different sounds. One unified sound becomes different sounds, then Autuksha, Astavargas, Dhunyatmaka, Savdatmaka. In between, so it's all Manasika in a way. This whole subjective reality manifests in through vibrations as the material world via this whole vibration, Dhunyatmaka. And that is how this whole thing starts. So there is this the unified subtle state of the supreme state, supreme truth, supreme consciousness, is subtler than all sukshma avasthas or intermediate subtle states. You have this akhanda dhvani, the first sound, kshobha, or the first thought, or the word, or whatever you put it. That supreme state is subtler than all these subtle states, or sukshma avasthas. In that supreme subtle state of the Parama Shiva, there is no start and end points, there is no birth and death, and there is no vibration, there is no kshobha. And that is that swatantra, when the supreme consciousness, Paramashiva, is fully conscious of itself, it's in a unified state. That Nimeshavastha. Unmesha is that spreading out of the energies and manifestation through which we find ourselves. Therefore, this Shiva Shakti Tattva, which is in a state of absolute balance and harmony, Samarasya, it starts with that Prithakkarana, or separation, Shiva and a Shakti, and then the Shakti starts playing that Maya game, and all that follows slowly. First moment is Nada Avivakti, in sound, right? And then you have millions and millions of spandanas, or vibrations, out of that Nada Shakti. This whole sansara sort of comes out of it. If we want to return, we have to do upashama. We have to put these, we have to quieten these, and we have to return there. That's what we do when we are trying to do meditation. This whole yoga, all of it is all about returning to your inner consciousness. So we are now being told, and it's very interesting, there will be a few, very key suggestions in the end, because this next sutra is about spiritual effort. And that spiritual itself is the form of Bhairava that they will say. We'll go there. So what happens right now? We have this Pasubhava, we have descended, we have these 3-4 things: Apurna Manyata Rupam, Bhinna Vedya Prathatmakam, Shubha Shubhatmaka, Asesha Karma Sanskara Vigraham. 3 things. One is that Anavamala, and you have this Anava Mala, and you have this Maya Mala, and you have this Karma Mala. So first moment is that Apurna Manyata. You are supreme consciousness, you are aware of spirituality, but you think you are incomplete. The first one, Swatantra Tahani, Bhinna Vedya Prathatmakam. And then these whole dualities, and you're trapped in this differentiation of the samsara, which appear as real to you. The third one is Subhasuva. This is good for me, I like to do that, or this is bad for me, I like to avoid that. And that Asesa Karma Sanskara Vigraham. And then you have these impressions of millions and millions of do's and don'ts in us. So Trividam Malamuktam Yat Tadeva Jnanam Uchyate. When we are sort of free from these, we are being able to overcome these three malas, then we are on the path of self awareness. We are returning to our pristine glory. Therefore, the second question which will emerge out of it, if you want to make a return, why are you in bondage? Right? So the bondage cause is we have explained earlier already, that bahirmukhata, because there's a concomitant, it's a necessity of necessity, the process of creation. The moment you are finding yourself in this external objective world, loss of spiritual independence is unavoidable. You must have seen that you are sitting in your office, you're working on a project, there's a phone call, and you have told yourself, you must have done that when we were in college or school days. You remember when exams come near, you do a action plan and you say that I'm going to avoid all my friends, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. But then there is a football match or cricket match, and then you get distracted. It's a necessary aspect of being a student and having a peer group and studying. There are a lot of things that happen. You want to be perfectly aware. If there's a problem or kind of a conflict or a difference of opinion, you shout at yourself and say, no, I'm not going to let that happen. But then it happens in some form or the other. Why does that happen? Because the very state of being here is being, bahirmukha again and again because of your engagement. And each moment you're opening up to connect with the external world, the connection with your inner truth is somewhere ruptured. And then you have to go to that. Therefore, what he's mentioning, alavdha antarmukha swatma vishrantini nirantaram bahirmukhani jnanani katyante vandhetavah. So these are some of the causes which I'm mentioning the answer. When you are unable to be introverted, not in that psychological sense, inwardly oriented. One is absence of inward orientation. Okay. And second one is that Atma Vishrantini Nirantaram. So you have all then Bahirmukhani Jnanani. I'm not happy, I'm sad, I can be richer, I can be more powerful. All these self imposed imaginations about who we are. That is the root of our bondage. So, this is both a cause and a consequence of our bondage. The feelings, the sensations, the conclusions we draw about ourselves and the kind of activities we do, these are consequences of one bondage or a predicament. It's like a vicious cycle. The whole effect becomes a cause for the next downfall or next consequence. So that cycle kind of keeps repeating itself, and we sort of go down and down further and further. Now, so how do we get out of it? What is this Varnamatrikas? To make sense of it, he's saying that, look, Adi Khyanta Rupa Ajnata Mata Matrika. Adi, is the first letter, right? Or to Kya. Adi Khyanta, Kya Anta. Yes, Khyanta, Khyanta. So you have Adi, you have in the beginning and Kya in the end of these 50 letters, alphabets. Mata Matrika. And that is Vishwajanani, because this whole creation of which you are trying to make sense, we're using language. And these are spiritually significant advices that we are getting. So when it becomes kind of sankuchita, contracted, and then it appears as truth, and we are mistaking the construction of certain reality through language for the absolute reality. It's mediated through language. And then, based on how we narrate the reality to us, we act on it. That fellow is angry with me. She is dependent on me. These are theories we build with these Varnamatrikas, these words and languages, and then we act upon them. What is the truth we even don't care to know? We cannot know. That is how it happens. So we have to sort of make a return journey. And about these varnas, there is this beautiful, sloka there is taken from the Spanda Sutras. Sorupa varane chasya saktaya satothita yatah sabdanuvedhena navina pratyudbhava. We have already discussed that yesterday. I'm not going to repeat it. Pratyudbhava is when you connect with anything, there is a lot of memory associated with, a lot of feelings, a lot of thoughts, and then it creates a certain world of its own. And in that world of its own, you become trapped, and then you start participating in it. So, end of the day, without words, without alphabets, none of our thoughts are going to be active. So we will not be into it. So what he mentioned, there's another in this Panda Sutra, there's another verse. The next one is saying, Jayam Kriyatmika Sakti Sivasya Pashuvartini Bandha Yatri Swamargasta Jnata Siddhu Papadika. Once you're aware of it, it can create siddhi. It can be liberating. But if you're not aware of it, you are trapped by it. And we have discussed about this Kriyatma Saktis, that if you are not aware of this whole mystery about it, you are a victim. You are aware of it, you are actually going to make use of it, and then you'll do sadhana with these mantras. Because why? That is the critical part. There is a lot of mantra sadhana. You have to do a lot of stotra patana and mantra chanting and all that. So you need to know about these vanamatrikas so that you can do your sadhana. That is the key thing. Now, sort of moving forward, we cannot put an end to this bondage of our consciousness until we regain our Atma Swarupa Bhava. We get the access key, the password to return to our self-awareness. So he's mentioning this verse is taken from Tantraloka of Abhinavagupta. What he says is, Adavanatmanyatma tattve line lavdhe nijatmani. Ado anatmani atmatve line. So you have anatmani atma buddhi and atmani anatma buddhi. That is the problem. We have just reversed. Whatever is not self, we think that is self, and what is self, we think that is non-self. So adau anatmani atmatve line lavdhe nijatmani. And when you recover your pure self, your self-awareness, atmani atmata nase, then what is not atma, you have atma buddhi there. I am thin, I am fat, I am so rich, I am so poor, this is my car, this is my house, my children, all that. Mahavyaptihi pravartate. So end of the day, there are two things we have to get rid of. We have identification with anatma, thinking it's atma, and then we wrongly ignore atma, thinking it's anatma. Then you have to return to yourself. Therefore, it becomes kind of a little easy how to make sense of it. So there are just two aspects of it. One is that subjectivity about this whole world, that is manashika. The other one is dhunyatmakata. Because I tell you why. Because the mantra sadhanas that are prescribed, the stotras you read, there are two aspects to it. Correct pronunciation, you chant that, and you have to start chanting aloud, and slowly it will go to that madhyama and then pashyanti avastha, then you are in deep meditation. But it starts with sound, that vibration. It creates a certain energy around you, and then it affects your subjectivity. They are both interrelated, acting on both. They're interrelated in a very dialectical way. So it's very powerful and it's very, very important. So you have this whole nada, signs of this manasa vishwa, world of mind, and world of sound. So you are working on both to return to your pure consciousness. And we have already mentioned why so, because that is how we have come to this state of affairs. Anything that we hit upon, you want to narrate, it takes the form of some thoughts, some subjectivity, and then you want to articulate it. You will take the help of language, it will take the help of sound. So you have these two aspects to everything that you are engaging in, that you have a mental aspect of it and you have that sound aspect to it. Then you are going to make both of them to do your sadhana and return where you will be returning to the world of perfect the absolute world of ultimate reality. And what is that? If both of them are apparent, the dhvanyatmaka and this manasika, the mental world and the sound world, you want to transcend it and return to yourself, then you'll be making use of these two worlds. Because you have come down through these two worlds, you will be passing through these two realities to go to the ultimate reality. So you will go to that Mulanada. That is how we do doing chanting and this and that. So from the differentiations, conflicts, differences, we are going to return to that unity, where in that Abhyakta Avastha, the Sakti is very much submerged and dissolved in the Shiva Tattva. And that is how we are going to go there. Therefore, there are a lot of quotations from different places. Sarve Varnatmaka Mantraha. What is the importance of this whole, Jnana Dhisthana Matrika? Sarve Varnatmakaha Mantra Techa Satyatmakaha Priye. Lord Shiva is explaining to Ma Parvati. Saktistu Matraka Genya Sacha Genya Sivatmika. The whole secret of all sadhanas that we are supposed to do is discussed here. Sarve Varnatmakaha Mantraha. All the mantras that you're saying Om, like you say, the Dakshina Kali mantra. Or you say Om Namo Ganeshaya Namaha. Anything you say, Om Namo Bhagavat Vasudevaya, Om Narayane, or just any mantra. And there are several bija mantras for the Sakti Upasanas. Sarve, all these Varnatmakaha mantra, Sarve mantraha Varnatmakaha Santi. Any mantra is made out of some Varna matrikas. Techa, and these Varnas, Satyatmakaha Priye. Where from have these Varnas emerged? These alphabets are differentiated appearances, mark my words, differentiated appearances of the Divya Sakti of Parama Shiva. That Jadevi Sarvabhuteshu, she takes different forms. So, by focusing, these mantras are made of Varnas, and Varnas are Matrikas, and these Matrikas are aspects of the Supreme Mother Energy. Saktistu Matrika Genya. So they are Sakyatmika, they have these energies, and that is Matrika, known as Matrika. And that Matrika, Sacha Genya Shivatmika. What is the Swarupa of this Matrika? She is the power aspect of Paramashiva, the Supreme Consciousness. Now it's abundantly, immediately clear to us what sadhana we have to do and why we have to do this chanting. Why do we do Gayatri Mantra? Whatever mantra we are doing, it has enormous significance to return to the Supreme Consciousness, which is a Swarupa. We have to be on a staircase or a ladder, and this ladder is an understanding of these Varnas, which are having the energies of their own, and these energies are energies of the Parama Shakti, and that Parama Shakti is Shakti of Parama Shiva, Shivatmika. So it's a beautiful thing to remember. Now we'll just have a few concluding understanding of this. What is then the Swarupa? What is the fundamental nature of these matrikas? Okay. So every bit of knowledge, whatever it appears in our mind, is based on different vibrations and thoughts and sounds. Which means that if you're in an agitated state, remember that certain words, certain sounds, certain music that we hear, they create certain vibrations in us, and they create a certain kind of subjectivity in us. It's a very popular thing. I use it. You may be using it. Sometimes they have what is called, the nocturnal music, right? Those who are working till late night, you play that piano or guitar or whatever. It's a background music, and then you can go on doing your research work or you're working on something. What is the usefulness of these sounds? Ambient music, whatever. No, they have enormous significance because there's some kind of a resonance which your mental brain vibrations. And then the brain becomes more conducive for engagement of intellectual work. Naturally, there will be some distraction. You are neutralizing that destructive distraction by constructively using that distraction as a means of concentration. If you have too much of distraction, they said, okay, why don't you organize your distractions? You are not being able to focus. That okay, then you will try to fix your you know book stack or whatever, other things like managing of files or something like that. You're organizing, so your brain becomes active, and slowly it returns to that level of concentration which is useful for you to achieve something. So these varnas are vyasti rupa saktis. Vyasti and samasti you have studied in Vedanta, right? So these are vyasti rupa saktis of that samasti, which is that matra shakti, that matrika thing, and they are in this form of these varnas. अकारः प्रथमो देवी सकारोस अन्त्यस्ततः परम अक्षमालेति विख्याता मातृका वर्ण रूपिणी. This is taken from, of course, the famous Lalita Sahasranama. Akarah Prathomo Devi, that is Akara, starts this 50 letters. And then Sakaro Antyas Tataha Param, you go till the end here. So Akhyamala, Akhyamala iti vikhyata matrika varna rupini. This mother having these varnas. And then this famous particular thing, Parashaktihi Paranishta Pragyana Ghana Rupini, Madhvipana Lasa Matta Matrika Varna Rupini. This is part of the Lalita Sahasranama. And if you pick up that book, I think the one by, I'm forgetting the name, published by the Ramakrishna Mission. You can find it online. The PDF may be available. And the Lalita Sahasranama, and there's a beautiful commentary on each nama. These are meditations on the Supreme Mother, and very useful. So that is what he is mentioning here. So you have this Parama Shiva Tattva, and it is Sakti Vachika. And then you have the Sakti, which is Shiva Vachika, and there is kind of an interrelationship between these. And therefore, a little few words about how the manifestation happens and what is this Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari. And that is also going to come even in Vedanta, but then let's have a bit of an understanding. These are beautiful things, because how to be on a return journey to the unified consciousness, we need to make sense of these Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari. And downwards, the downmost state is Vaikhari when we are speaking aloud. Okay, so each of them. First one is that Para state. Okay, that Para state is beyond any words, any vibrations. So that is the first. It's basically Chaitanya Bhasa Rupatmika Maya Shakti. That is what is Paravak. That magical power of Lord Shiva. It has not taken any physical forms, no form of vibration, nothing. Is beyond all vibration, all ideas, all thoughts. But that is the first moment of Lord Shiva's Unmesa, the Vimarsha Shakti, the first appearance of his power aspect. That is Paravak, beyond all that. And, if you pick up any Kashmir Saivism book, there'll be loads of explanation and details on it. We are just touching upon it because as you move forward, there'll be more discussion on it. The next one is Pashyanti, where Spanda is emerging, that vibration is emerging. And what is that thing? The second stage is that the second evolution of the Paravak, which is beyond all name and form, all sounds, is called Pashyanti. So, Saspandavastaha Pashyantyadhyaha, it's called Pashyanti. Why? There is perception. So it's again Jnanatmaka, remember. There is no hiding of the self. There is still a state of perception. Samanya Spanda Prakasha Rupini Nada Tattvatmika Pashyanti, but it's Nada, the vibration, Dhvanyatmaka world has started. Adhyatma Muladharadi Muladina. Okay. Adhyatma Muladharadi Nabhyantam. So you have this Muladhara Chakra, Nabhyantam. And what he's saying, Abhivajyamana Vani Pashyanti Vaksakti. That is what he's saying. Avivajyamana, that means it has not taken the form of multiple vibrations. is still in a state of unified sound. It's Nada Swarupa, okay? And then it's called Pashyanti because Samanya Spanda Prakasha Rupini. There is still that consciousness and there's still that way of perceiving things, being able to observe that energy is still there. So Samanya Jnanatmakatvat Pashyanti Sha. It's Jnanatmaka, still the Jnana thing. That means Chaitanya Matma, right? So Jnanatmaka is still Jnanatmaka. Slowly there'll be degradation of this whole thing. The next one now is the third stage is called Madhyama, when you're muttering within. What is that? That's the third stage, okay? That's a descent going down. Bahyantaha Karnadhyatmika. Bahya and Anta. Then you have this, you see, the sound and the subjectivity. Manas, sixth indriya, and you have this Vani, you will be able to speak. So, Bahya Antakarnadhyatmika, Hiranyagarbha Rupini, creation starts. Hiranyagarbha Rupini, like Prajapati in Vedanta, Bindu Tattvamai, Nabhyadi Hridayanta Bhyavakti Sthana, starting from Navi. The last one is Muladhara to Navi. This one is Nabhi to this Hridaya. Hridayanta Abhivyakti Sthana, Vishesha Spanda Sankalpadi Sattva, Vishesha Spanda, specific vibration. Sankalpadi Sattva, that was beyond all Sankalpa Vikalpa, but this is Sankalpadi Sattva. Then he's saying Hridaya Vani Hi Madhyama Vak. So then you're not sounding, you're speaking in your heart. This vibration is subtle, it's Sukshma Avastha. Remember, when we had this Avastatraya Viveka, in our Vedic Vedantic discussions, first you have the Vishwa or Jagrata Avastha, is called Virata in Samashti and a Vishwa in the Vyasti or the individual micro level. Jagrata Avastha, waking state. Next one is Sukshma Avastha, Swapna Avastha, in Vyasti level is called Taijasa and is called Hiranyagarbha or Sutratma or whatever in the Samasti level. And finally you have the Karana, and in that level, the Karana thing, what do you have there? The Karana, there is Ishvara, here it is called Pragya, and there is a Turiya Avastha beyond that. The Turiya Avastha that is talked about when you're discussing O Uma, Swapna, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, and then Turiya Avastha. Similarly, the fourth state here is Paravak, and then you have the Pashyanti, comparable with the Karana Sarira or the Ishvara there, and then you have Madhyama, which is comparable with the Hiranyagarbha Rupini, Bindu Tattvamai Nabhyadi Hridayanta Avivyakti Sthana, Vishesha Spanda Sankalpadi Sattva, then Hridayaga Vani, which is actually in your heart, you are not speaking aloud. Then finally Virat, means it will have physical manifestation. Virat Rupini Vijatmika, Hridayasya Paryanta, Hridaya Asya Paryanta, starting from the heart till your mouth. Asya Paryanta Abhivyajyamana Savda Samanyatmika Vani Baikhari Vak. So now you're speaking. Asya, you're speaking through your mouth, starting at this, and you start making sound. That is Baikhari. That is the lowest level. So you have, then some people say, well, Panchapadi, they will add another state. What is the state they're adding? Beyond Paravak, they will say there is a state called Shunya. And some people say 7 stages are there. What do they add? They will say Sukshma, Para, then adding Sukshma, they'll add 2 more, Sambit and Shunya. But these are all nomenclatural, not very fascinating right now, except for if you are taking too much of interest into this aspect. So, Para, the level of Paravak is in the Muladhara, Nityodita, Avivakti, Pashyanti, that, Samanya Jnanatmika, okay? And it's there. And then finally you have Madhyama, and then finally you have the Madhyama is Nadatmika, and then what? Binduatmika, it's Bindu, Tattvamai, and then finally you have Virat, okay? So that particular energy which is in the Muladhara, Mula, so this is kind of the Mahashakti, and this Savdatmaka Savti and Arthatmaka Shiva, Vachya Vachaka, the Sakti thing is Savdatmaka, and actually Artha is that Parama Shiva, manifesting in vibrations, in words. That is the relationship. Why we are reading all this? How does it help us? You'll ask this question, why did you waste our time? Because in sadhana, the implication is when we know this, that if we understand this mystery, then we are better equipped to make use of the signs of language, different signs, different bija mantras to do sadhana, to engineer changes in our subjectivity, also the objective reality. The both subjective and objective reality of ours we can transform by making use of the signs of these matrikas, who are very helpful or harmful depending on how we are trying to relate with them. Okay, and therefore this whole science is there. So paravhumi paravak is vijatmika, and then the Pashyanti is comparable with Kripas, Lata Gucha, and then the Madhyama is Saurabha, the fragrance, Baikari is Akhyamala, this whole thing. So this whole particular story is there. And now we have sort of had a very long discussion in it. And when we go forward, we will be given some more very deep, very focused discussion on about mantras. We will know the next sutra, just to mention it, we'll start it in the next class, is he's mentioning in the next verse, it's a clear jump from it in continuity, Udyomo Bhairavaha, because this is Bhairava Tantra. This is all meditative, contemplative. These are not about rituals and all. This is for advanced sadhakas. For the lower grade sadhakas, we'll be dealing with them in the last section of this text. For the middle level sadhakas, we'll deal in the middle part of this text. They are talking about the best students who, some of the interpreters are mentioned, who don't have to get into these mantras and rituals and all that. They can directly meditate because they have purified consciousness and they have done enough sadhana maybe in their last birth. They are just privileged or they have the divine grace. Somebody like Sri Aurobindo. So, you had this famous Lele guy who came to teach him meditation, and he learned his meditation only for 3 days. And then very quickly he was into his own realm of, trance, and he went there. And Lele got flabbergasted. He said, how come this guy can reach there so quickly? He said, what did you experience? And these are my experiences. And he entered into a trance for several hours. And he said, oh, you don't need any teacher. I'm sorry. Don't waste your time. You do your sadhana. Essentially was saying that the stage where you need a bit of hand holding, you need to do a lot of mantra and other kinds of sadhanas, he was past that stage. Similarly, the Sambhava Upaya, which is the first section of Shiva Drishti, Shiva Sutra, deals with very advanced sadhakas or aspirants who are told about the mysteries so that they can quickly reconnect and meditate and contemplate. And just being aware of it, they can return to their Puritan state. And that is captured by the fifth sutra, Kal Udyamo Bhairavaha. And we will go there in the next class. If you have any questions or doubts, whatever, we have a little time, and then you can ask. Any questions or whatever? Any of you?
Can you repeat the correlations between the Shiva Sutra way and the Vedantic way? So I got that Vaikhari is like similar to Virat, and I got Madhyama is similar to Hiranyagarbha. So then, what
Yes.
are the other two, Pashyanti and Para? What are their
And
equivalents in Vedanta?
Pashyanti, you can sort of equate that with the Karana Sarira, the Pragya, the
Karana.
deep truth state, and you have the Paravak, and no, the direct equation will be faulty. I'm just saying that there are similarities, but
Mhm.
this is not, none of the commentators have written like that. The words are similar. He's mentioning about Virat here, Virat Rupini.
Mhm.
Similarly, using the word Hiranya Garbha Rupini for the Madhyam Avastha. The Pashyanti, because you see, during Madhyam Avastha, you are not chanting the mantras, you are chanting them in your heart. So
Mhm.
some people say Madhyama is when you are muttering it very slowly. Now, if you say what is these three meditations, they
Mhm.
will say that Vaikhari is sounding aloud your mantras, which is called Adhama. Madhyama is muttering slowly. There is movement of your tongues and lips. And Pashyanti is when you are actually closing your ideas, you're in meditation, the mantra repeats in your mind or in your heart, whichever way. Okay. So Pashyanti, that is, and Pashyanti, but this is what he mentioned here, Pashyanti, is Nada Tattvatmika. Yes, the vibration is there, but it's also Jnanatmaka, it's Jnanatmaka. That's why the Pashyanti word is there. So it's a state of much superior contemplation. And then you have Paravak, where the mantras, that happens if you do any Purasharan and something. You will, if you start a mantra after 4 5 days, if you continuously chant it, 4 5 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, you will get into certain phases where you'll stop actually doing any japa, but japa will start happening and you'll just be helplessly witnessing it. It'll just it happen and you can't do anything. The whole process will be repeated, and there will be moments when you are aware of it, but there is no mantra. You will fall into a trance. That is that paravak avastha. That is the Turiya avastha of also the Vedanta, which is there in the Mandukya Karika and the Mundaka Upanishads. But we'll look at that as we move forward, because that is the next sutra that we'll do it with more elaborate discussions.
Yeah, but I have another question if there is time.
Yeah,
So
please.
so the way that they have linked these four avasthas to the different chakras, they're saying that the more advanced chakra is actually in Muladhara, and then as you're going down and down, you're coming up the chakra, right? But usually in our common understanding of the chakras, the further up you ascend, the better in spiritual progress it is, right? Here it is looking like it's opposite.
Absolutely. That is the Kundalini thing. So
Mm,
you have the Sahasrara at the top. No, here when they are talking about the soul, it will come the Sakti chakras. You see, so this is the mystery of it. So this is Kashmiri Saivism. The Kundalini word is very much here. If you remember, the Kundalini word is very much here. We cannot directly equate that. They are not saying. All that I'm saying is that the like the Muladhara is the foundation of our consciousness in this biological system. It's actually in the reverse order. The Paravak is kind of or the primary state, and then the more and more manifestation happens, and you are returning. So the Paravak here, they are relating it from Muladhara till the Navi chakra, right? Here they are
mm,
mentioning, which will cover, for example, the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, and Manipura, that will cover. But how is it equated and how this particular thing has to be captured and how we need to practice, we will discuss that as we move forward to the next verse in the next class.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's do the Santi mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Pranam.